Oh yeah. So it's been a while since I decided that it was time to come clean, but I've been putting it off, waiting for the perfect moment, which actually never really comes. So I'm just gonna do it now and get it out of the way. So I want to talk about an issue that many creators face, but not all of us process in the same way. And if you're anything like me, it may lead you to stop publishing or even step away from social media entirely. Now, if you're someone who's all about to make it as a celebrity and you've got social media down, you might not find this useful. But guess what? That's all right, because I'm not making this for you. This is for the artists that are just starting on social media or they are just not very comfortable with it. And honestly, some of them might not even know if they want to start at all because they don't really know what to expect from it. For those who don't know me, my name is Edu Vidal. I'm better known as Slide in Illustration, and I've been working for more than half a decade illustrating comics for Webtoon Comic Originals on the series The House of Stars and Lady Night. So, I never had the best relationship with social media, but to be fair, starting out as an artist, it's never easy. You're expected to define yourself when your art style might not be fully formed yet. You're expected to upload fresh content constantly, and it's expected for yesterday. When I started, I didn't take into consideration its impact on my career. The beginning is when I posted the most and when I experienced the highest growth, especially during the Inktober challenges. But I wasn't really too concerned about branding. In fact, the name Lion Illustration, I didn't even pick it myself. I was in a marketing class and I really didn't like anything that I came up with. And a friend of mine picked Lion Illustration because I had longer hair back then. So, yeah. To be fair, as an artist, it's always easier to work on other people's projects than our own because we detach ourselves. Looking at ourselves, it's way more complicated. We are a mash of many things that we know personally, and defining that for the internet, it might come up as easy, but it's one of the most difficult things that an artist has to do. So I really think that this is one of the first struggles that an artist has to face when they have to come up with something for social media. Around this time, at the beginning of my career, and when I created my first Instagram and YouTuber and whatever, it's when I started landing my first jobs. And as every time this happened, the potential clients start asking about your social media. As any beginner, whenever I gave it away, I will hear things like, "Is this really you? Are you sure?" Or you're like, "Oh, I saw this account, but I thought it was a fake profile." And the most common one, "I think you should get someone to manage your social media." But as an emerging artist, that's not really an option. We have to start ourselves. And sadly, the more work we get, the less time we have to dedicate to social media. Because getting work at the beginning, it also means that you cannot post it. So as artists, while people manage to showcase like their best version of themselves on the Instagram, we find ourselves struggling trying to showcase a hint of ourselves. Artists struggle making one single post. And the funny thing is that, the thing that we want to post took ages to create, and then we make the shittiest post ever, and we're like, done. We find ourselves in the opposite spectrum of the Instagram filter effect. Whatever thing we do looks always way much better in person. So that's why when I started working and landing my first jobs, I thought like, I really don't need social media anymore. I didn't felt represented by my online presence. And to be completely honest with you guys, I don't think I'm very good at it. Whenever you see me on the internet, I don't recognize myself. So it's very uncomfortable. I internalize if there are other creators that live without social media. Why wouldn't I? But then something changed, and it was something that had everything to do with a social media platform. As many of you know by now, because most of you met me there, I started working for Webtoon. Webtoon is a comic tutorial that merged the comic industry with the social media apps. For the first time, my work was going to be constantly displayed for everyone to see, and some readers genuinely cared about it. But the number was growing up very fast. So at that point, I didn't feel like my online exposition had grown organically, because despite my low profile on the internet, the numbers on the app were wild. And I wanted to generate new content for all the new people that was very interested in what I was doing. But that was a big concern for me because I could tell that my social media wasn't up to the part. So I did one thing that I think many of us did when we started in Webtoon, despite not having enough time, not even for work, and is get time from where I don't have to try to make posts for social media. And since I didn't have the time, everything that I came up with and everything I posted wasn't up to the part for a professional creator, and I was very well aware of that. And that made myself think about the duality of having a work where I put so much time and I try to be professional, but at the same time, you have these shitty posts online. It makes you feel like you're losing your credibility as a creator. So it's natural that you feel like a fraud. By the time I started the second series, The Lady Night, I was very well aware of the situation. And I thought that that was going to be the worst part, but I was not even close to what was yet to come. So despite my nearly non-existing post, many of you followed me on my social media. And then something unexpected happened, some things that I was not ready to process. There's a weird chapter in the early career of a creator when you're no one, but your work starts getting the first fans. And I hardly see people talk about this because usually when an author has fans of their work is because sometimes the author is known before. But when the opposite thing happens, this situation is very extreme. I've talked about this with some other companions and they all agree. A sign that you are doing something right on your path is when you nearly get any new followers, but then you start getting a flood of DMs. This happens because people know that you're more approachable than a famous artist and that their chances for you to answer are higher. But what some of them are not very aware of is that many of them have the same idea. And you'll be surprised, but many of the people that do this don't even follow you. This situation is a little tense already, but I must warn you about what's yet to come. What you don't know is that between all the DMs that you have been answering, you might have just talked to your first stalker. I must make a stop here because I cannot emphasize enough the difference between a devoted fan and a stalker. I have readers that write me whenever they finish a chapter and they want to tell me that they liked it or that they didn't. I do have readers that they write me also from time to time if I haven't been uploading anything. I have some that they wish me Merry Christmas and stuff like that. They send me emojis and that's completely fine. I even have some readers that talk a lot and they write me lots of messages. They might even cross the line a little bit, but the common sense with the fans is that they understand that if I have to not reply or tell them that we need to finish the conversation, they get it. They understand. Because everyone knows that even though you're not famous, sometimes you cannot cope with answering all the messages. The stalkers, in the other hand, are not like that. They really feed on your reactions. They feel the urge to start really long conversations from the beginning, and they cross the line very early. They ask very personal questions, and you have to be very well aware of them because if they don't get what they want, they might even threaten you. As many of you know by now, in the creative world, whether you're a creator or a fan, creative people, we tend to be socially awkward in some situations. So when some people crosses the line and say or do things that we cannot even imagine, we don't always how to react. Most of us try to politely end the conversation, but we really are not prepared for this. We can end up obsessing about those interactions, and you fall into a loop, and sometimes the only way out you see is cutting off all the contact with fans for good. Long story short, and without getting much into detail, me, without having a huge fan base, I'd already had some pretty rough interactions, even to the point that someone threatened to end their life if I stopped answering them. On the good side, I was lucky enough to have friends, and I met people that have been working in this platform for way longer than I have, and they have encountered similar situations. They guided me to the process of what I had to do whenever this happens again. And newsflash, what I was going to do was completely the opposite thing of what I should have done. So what I mean with this is that we really are not ready. To be clear, if this ever happens to you, what you have to do is right now in social media apps, you can flag a comment as self-injury or dangerous, and they deal with that because you as an author, you are not responsible. So don't hesitate on blocking that people and flagging them, because it's not your fault. And I know it seems cold, especially for people that are like us, but most of the time when these people send you these messages is exclusively because they want attention. It's not real. It's not gonna happen. If after this, I understand you don't feel comfortable, there's always an easy way out. You block your DMs and tell your followers that please ask everything, all the questions or whatever they want in the comments. And the fact that the comments are a public place, it acts as a filter. So when that happened, I had already quit social media without even noticing. And Webtoon was the only platform that I've been active in the past years. The thing of publishing in Webtoon and feeling the exposure on a platform like that is that sometimes the company is aware of the situation of the creators and the challenges that they might face when they start publishing. And in my case and some other creators, we had a chat on how to handle the fandom, especially the comments. Because as a creator, it's very common that some people obsess over a comment. In my case, I've never had an issue with the comments. I think I'm very lucky with the readers that I have. Up until the gap between season 2 and season 1, because during that time, a group of readers misunderstood one of the crucial themes of the comic, and they claimed that I was not ready or that I didn't understand what I was talking about. They jumped to an early conclusion of what the situation was, and they didn't understand my take on the situation. I don't want to go into detail because the series is not finished. It's an incomplete story, and I don't think an author should explain their work without letting the audience finish it and reach their own conclusions. But what worried me the most is that the readers that commented were saying the exact opposite of what the story stands for. And some of them even said that they were gonna tell other people to not read it. It's very tough to hear people say that they are gonna recommend not reading your series because it talks about something that is the opposite of what you stand for. That hit very hard, and I did something that I shouldn't have done, and I grabbed the season 2 and season 3, and I obsessed with the fact that maybe some people might not understand the messages. I had to read the whole season 2 and season 3 again, making notes, and I started even to rewrite most of the chapters because I was very obsessed with misleading situations. That was the second time I write season 2, so when I sent it to my editor, it was already late. Even though I got the green light to start creating the season 2, then I started producing the chapters. And when I was doing the first chapters, I realized that the interactions between the characters were horrible, because I was so frustrated when I wrote season 2 and season 3 again. I made every single interaction between the characters out of frustration. So they were all angry all the time. They were trying to come up with their points across in a very rough way. And I realized that that was not my story. That's not Lady Night. You cannot have every single interaction be out of spite. So even though I had already started working, I had to stop, and I told my editor that I had to rewrite it again. And that's why the delay was so long. It was because I started producing very, very late. So with this, I want to say that even though you're an adult or you're a professional and you know how to hide your feelings, your art can't. As many of you know, it took a long time to get back with season 2. But finally it was released, and thank you very, very much, because even though it was a long time, most of you came back, and I could never thank you enough, because I couldn't have expected for a warmest welcome. So for many years now, I had quit social media, but if you would ask me, I would never fully admit it. I would have told you that it's not true, because I posted one thing before the new season came up or something like that. And it's because I really didn't think I had. I know some of you might relate to this. Sometimes you have a problem and you think you've moved on because that problem doesn't have an effect on you directly anymore. But the way you behave doesn't add up with the way you speak. Like, your feelings and your speech make sense, but at the end of the day, you don't act accordingly to what you expect. And the truth is, you're not over the problem, you're just ignoring it. I said I didn't care about the comments, and I couldn't care less about the people misunderstanding my comic. I really thought, I genuinely felt that way, but I can tell that it's not true, because whenever I'm about to post something or I have to think about making a post, the first thing I think is, what if someone misunderstands this? What if it's not good enough? And then I just don't do it. The simple thought of posting something and coming across with the wrong message or the wrong point is always enough to stop me from doing it every time. I've normalized having the bare minimum social media presence, and I've been very comfortable with it. That is until I realized that my inactions also have consequences. And to be frank, I wasn't very well aware of that until season 2 came out. So after that, I met some other creatives that met me before, and I've known them from long ago, and they thought I was no longer active. Some readers asked me if the comic was cancelled, because they saw on the internet that some other people have been saying that the series was cancelled. And more comments started to arrive like this, even though the series was back on track. It's very embarrassing as a creator that this happens, because it's not like we're not working. And even though the series is being released at the moment, but then I realized the fact that I do not post anything at all is actively hindering my work. We talked about how some of my favorite creators don't have social media, and that is because they don't need it. They have enough work to speak for them. But what if you don't have enough work published yet? Social media is the way right now, because if you haven't worked enough to connect with people, this is the tool to use. By neglecting it, I'm not only closing myself off, I've been pushing out all the people who already like my work. And I was feeling like a failure because my posts were not good enough. But I think I'm being a bigger failure by keeping out the people that really want to know about my work. So after all this time, I asked myself, what kind of artist do I want to be? I don't want to be the kind of author who only gives crumbs to their readers from time to time. I want to be like the creators that inspire me to follow their steps, the ones who led me into their world and guided me without knowing into my career. Those who I awaited their updates like rain, those who keep you excited and they make you want to try new things. That's why I feel like I have to give this another try. In some ways, I would like to start all over again. I'm gonna drop the name that someone else picked for me, and I wanna reintroduce myself as Edu, which is my real name, and I'm gonna upload content, but without dates or expectations. I know I'm not gonna like it, but just like I did with art, I'm gonna learn as I go. Right now, I can say that I'm aware that I'm afraid of being misunderstood and not liking what I put up to the public, but we learn from the mistakes, and I don't think I was being fair with myself, not leaving any room for failure. I'm still quite uncomfortable, as you might tell, and I know I'm far from being good in social media and self-representation, but I know that at this point, I either start trying now or I'm never gonna do it at all. We all know that perfect is the enemy of finished, and right now, I rather have this up on the internet than nothing. So whatever this turns out to be, it will do for now. You know that social media has this thing about being about extremes. You're either full in or full out. But as creatives, I really feel that we need to find our good spot in the middle because we need our time to be creatives in the things that we like and to work. But we also need some exposure in order to grow in the world that we are living right now. I think that obsessing about it can be very bad, but I also think that obsessing about not giving it a try could be as harmful. I think that social media as an artist is far from being about the followers and the likes and becoming super famous. It's about not giving up on the people that like what you do and taking them into consideration. I hope this thing, whatever it is, um, helps anyone that is trying to make their way in the world of the illustration and they really don't know what to expect. Please don't hesitate on ask any questions if you want. I will read and answer in the comments. I'm sorry to say that in order to continue, I decided to close my Instagram DMs. Some of you have been writing me for a long time. I really appreciate every single one of your messages. But in order for me to keep on growing on social media, I feel like I need this. Whatever thing you want to tell me, please just tell me in the comments. I will make sure to read and answer them whenever I can. And understand that this is a much safer way for me to get back into my relationship with the social media. Also, many of the questions that you have are the same that other readers have. So by writing it into the comments, you might find that maybe someone else had the same question and they even have the answer. And who knows, maybe the question that you have might be something that some other people is wondering and you might even help out each other. Thank you so much everyone for always being there, and I hope to see you soon.